Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Tony Robinson. Welcome to my talk, Fantastic OSINT and Where to Find It. This isn't going to be a talk about Maltego. This isn't going to be about Recon NG. This isn't going to be about Spiderfoot. This isn't about stalking people. I'm not a social engineer. I don't go on Spokio. This isn't anything like that. This is about open source threat intelligence. This is who do you talk to, who do you follow, what places do you go to get amazing data to help you find the bad guys, help you eliminate the threats in your network. So I just want to set expectations right now. And I'm going to start with this slide. Bottom line up front, the materials for the slide are up on my server already. So if all you wanted was the data and the slide deck and you wanted to get the hell out of here as fast as you can, I made it easy for you. That's right, walk on out. That's what I thought. Okay, for the rest of you poor bastards who want to stay here and listen to me talk, my name is Tony Robinson. I go by da667. I am a intermediate malware hunter. I like playing with malware. I like finding weird things on the internet and determining whether or not they're bad. For some strange reason, I have been hired as a Intel analyst / security operations analyst for Hurricane Labs. And I love working with network security monitoring stuff. My background's in flow monitoring, packet analysis, IDS, IPS. That's just my jam. It's what I like to do. And in my spare time, I play a lot of video games. I kill a lot of these little bastards. And I by no means claim to be a rock star or good at anything I do here. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. So, I'm going to tell you about a couple of my greatest accomplishments. I've spoken at a number of conferences in the past. I've spoken at Hack Miami, a number of B-Sides conferences, ESISec meetups. I've been around the block. In fact, last year with my good buddy ForgottenSec right up front here, we did a snort training. So not kidding around when I say I like doing IDS and IPS work. At one point in my life, I was classified as a social media threat by ESET, the malware company. They declared my profile a threat because I kept tweeting out like, hey, here's C2s, here's a bunch of IRC channels, here's where you can go and you can see all these bots and make them do crazy things. And they were like, this guy's weird. I don't think he's right in the head. So let's hire him. So I've also been told I'm somewhat of a good storyteller. After I'm done here, if you guys want to, stick around and hear me talk about bullshit, I'm more than willing to do that. I have diarrhea of the mouth, if you couldn't tell, through social media. And last but not least, I have a massive research paper that I have done on ransomware. Go read it. It's fun. It's all sorts of fun things are happening, and I get to say, called it a lot. So it's been great. So let's start getting into this talk here. What's OSINT? It's just open source intelligence. If you didn't have to beat somebody with the tire iron for it, use signals intelligence, massint, electronic warfare, any of that stupid pseudo spy bullshit, it's OSINT. It's data that you got for free. You didn't have to coerce anybody into giving it to you. It's like, hey, here's a massive trial of data. I'm just going to hand it out. So it's research papers, it's social media, it's PDFs about the latest threats. No spying required. So what does this have to do with our field? What does this have to do with information technology, blue teaming, security operations? We have a lot of jargons in information security. Borrows very heavily from the military, very heavily from information technology. And OSINT is tied directly to threat intelligence and how it's become a big thing anymore. It's no longer cool to say that you maintain a blacklist. It's no longer cool that you say that you generate reports. It's all threat intelligence now. It's all the same. It's indicators of compromise. Your file hashes, your IP addresses, your domains, anything that a piece of malware or something drops to a host, so your host-based artifacts, your reg keys that get modified, files, services modified, configuration files modified, user agents that you see on the wire, patterns of bytes that you see over the wire, ports that the piece of malware will beacon back to or talk over. That's OSINT. That's all of the data you're getting out of these reports. That's your indicators of compromise. That's all it is. So I'm going to give you a nice example story. You remember how I said I was a storyteller? I'm going to give you a nice example story of what this stuff looks like in action. I used to work for a security operations center for a power company. One of my buddies sends me a picture or a story about this bot called NikiBot. And the way that this thing worked was this bot would attach itself to Google Chrome as a I want to say it was a plugin of some sort, and it would spy on user operations. Anytime they go to a URL or anything, it would log what URL that they would go to. Send the URL to a command and control somewhere out on the internet, and then a few hours later, you'd see a user agent for this thing called NikiBot trying to hit the same URL. What's really interesting is when you see this thing from the internet trying to hit intranet, internal network resources, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? So we had Splunk set up, and I decided I was going to look for this user agent on our network and see if we got any hits, and sure enough, we had plenty of them. So I got an article. I was able to use our SIM to take this data and make it actionable. I was able to further analyze the article and see this is what user agent it uses. Here's the C2s that it calls back to. Here's the file hashes that are associated with the plugin, and pivot off of that data and say this is what we need to be able to see in our network and detect in order to protect against this particular threat. In addition to that story, I might have wrote some things. I have a GitHub repository. I run a very sporadic blacklist that's kind of ran as I have time to run it, affectionately called da667's shit list. And I also have a bunch of Python scripts that I've wrote here and there that made my job a little bit easier. Maybe they'll help you too. Feel free to have a look. And this is an example of what my blacklist looks like. So I just have a name of the thread at the top, any kind of social media links or handle where I got the data, a URL where you can get more information about it. In this case, it's virus total and it's SHA-256 hash. Associated domains. So you get associated domains here, what I've seen this talking to on the internet, and that's about it, you know. And you have the same thing down here for Locky, which I don't know if any of you guys have been listening to malware news recently. It's been suspected that the dudes behind Dradex and Locky might have been taken down. So great news for the rest of us, terrible news for them. But in any case, you know, getting back to this, the threat name, where I might have gotten it from, any associated links, you know, because I like to do works cited. I like to, you know, say this is where I got it from, and then any associated domains and IP addresses. So before I go on any further in this talk, I'd like to address the pyramid of pain and how I really don't agree with it. I really don't like it. But for the few of you that don't understand or don't know what the pyramid of pain is, the idea is that when you're trying to map out a threat, and the further you are going along in an investigation, the harder it is to learn more information about a threat. So the idea is that if you're picking up, you pick up things like hash values, IP addresses, your domain names, network and host artifacts, and that stuff's relatively easy to pick up. And then they say, well, it's really hard to figure out what tools that this particular actor is using or what their motivations are. And a lot of the times when I see different researchers talking about the pyramid of pain, they say, don't worry about everything below tools. Don't worry about any of that crap. That doesn't matter. Maybe I'm listening to the wrong talks, but that's what I hear all the damn time. And the fact of the matter is that data that's below those points, that's the prerequisite data that you need in order to get the toolkits or understand how the toolkits work for these different actors. In order to understand their motivations, in order to understand what other networks they're attacking, you know, whether or not they're a threat to you, whether or not they matter to you. So, in conclusion, I kind of say that, you know, just because this data is easy to pick up does not mean it's worthless. A lot of these people that are preaching the pyramid of pain, they're microscopically focused on threat intelligence. They are focused like a laser on advanced persistent threats. They're looking for lions out there in the jungle when they don't care that jackals are in the chicken coop killing all the chickens. So that's my problem that I have with the pyramid of pain, is that it's way too focused on a single subject. So my best advice is, if you do any kind of security operations, if you're an MSSP, then don't lose perspective. Just because the data is easy to pick up does not mean that it's worthless in any way. So that being said, I'm going to start going into, this is where I get my data, this is where I look. And for the most part, I just look at social media. I'm mainly on Twitter, if you couldn't tell already. And I go to a variety of different websites that are ran by researchers that I follow. So these are generally organized into sites that people share indicators of compromises for threats that they have found, or private threat trackers that a researcher will run. Like, they'll have entire hash databases, like databases of malware files, or entire databases that are dedicated to one particular bot or one particular threat tracker. And then you have malware analysis sites and suites. You know, everybody here who has done any kind of blue team work knows what VirusTotal is. You know, that's just one example, but there are several other very specialized and very nice sites that you can use for gathering data for your investigations. So that's about it when it comes to what data I pick up. It's social media and different websites that do different things for me. So this is some examples of some of the social media data I picked up in the past. These are just various researchers, you know. Conrad over here is really great at tracking exploit kit data and tracking spam campaigns. I've seen Jake Warren, you know, he has a particular hatred for exploit kits. But in general, you know, I set up TweetDeck on Twitter's TweetDeck client. I made a list of researchers to follow, and I set up a column and I say, I want you to follow this list, and this is the kind of data I get. These are the links I get. This is the information I'm able to get off of them. These people are just putting data out there. I literally stand on the shoulders of giants. Everybody thinks that I'm some brilliant cyber guru or something, or that I'm some kind of a thought leader. No, these guys are doing the hard work. You should be thanking them. So right up front, just wanted to say that. Again, if you're interested in the lists, I put a link up to my website, blindseeker.com/ccc. I made a Firefox bookmarks file, both HTML and JSON. And you can import that, and I have the list of users that I follow for malware data on Twitter. I have a list of, and I have a variety of different websites that are categorized into different areas of expertise that you can use for your own investigative purposes. But just to reiterate what I said, here's a list of people, follow them, use a social media client, set up a column. You don't ever have to tweet these guys if you don't want to. You don't have to get involved. But this is free data that's out there. This is information on the latest threats, just constantly streaming every single day. As a bonus to this, there's another series of accounts that I picked up over a series of time. These are I call them honeybots. These are users that use Dianea or Kippo, Cowrie, other kinds of honeypots, and will attach some kind of a bot or some kind of a script to them that says, I saw this IP address attacking me with this protocol, where the protocol could be SMB, it could be an HTTP-based attack, SQL injection, RDP, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. And they just generate a whole bunch of IP addresses and say, here's everything that I've seen. And in some cases, like the account Honeyfog here, it'll say, I've seen this IP address this many other times. I've seen this. This is an abuse request that I got for this particular client in the case of WebIron bots, and so on and so forth. One of my good buddies, Lopi, he did his own talk here. He developed a script that he that uses Tweepy that will actually pull from the list that I generated here, and will say every time you run the script, or every time you run it, it will pull out all the IP addresses from this feed and just say, this stuff is all nasty crap that just gives you a flat text file. So good on him. I was trying to figure out how to do that. Did I mention I'm a terrible coder? Because I'm really, really bad at scripting and coding. So good on him for helping me. Like I said, I constantly stand on the shoulders of giants. So also with a lot of this data that I got from the threat tracking list here, Foo Spidey made this. I just kind of went through and I pruned out the dead data, the dead accounts that weren't posting any more data, and spruced it up and just said, here you go, here's everything that I think, here's everything that's posted within the last 3 months, and there you go. That's all there is to it. So that completes the social media portion. Now comes the fun part. The websites that I had mentioned before, portals for sharing indicators of compromise, malware trackers that these researchers run. There's tons of data out there. And for the record, all the links that I have here, they are in the bookmarks file and then some. I don't have enough time to cover every single link that I put into that bookmarks file. But I went through all of that work and I organized it. I put them into different categories to help you guys do your own kick-ass work. So this isn't everything that I have in there. This is just a taste of what I've put together. So to get started, I love Alienvault Otx. That's their online threat exchange. The data is absolutely free to get to. It's free for anybody to browse, and all you got to do if you want to export the data is create an account with them. The accounts are free. They're 100% free. Just sign up, give them an email address, set up a username and password, and you're good to go. You can put data up there if you feel like contributing to the community. You can look at other people's pulses and say, well, I found this additional data in addition to what you got, so it's very much a collaborative effort. People post data, you can take the data. You can take the data and use it for your own purposes. You can take the data and refine it, so on and so forth. I really like it. It's a great platform. And I just got a couple of screenshots here to show you what the interface looks like here. You got a list of their events. They call them pulses. And then when you click on a pulse, you get a list of, here's what this threat's about. Here's the infrastructure or the countries that we've seen the infrastructure relating to. And here's any IOCs that we had. So they do domains, they do host names, IP addresses, and there's also an option there if you're logged in to export the data in a variety of different formats, like a Stix taxi or CSV format, or whatever suits you. So that's OTX in a nutshell. Very highly recommend them. Create an account, share some data. The US listed? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, there's all sorts of compromised crap in our own backyard. And so this is another one. I originally wrote a blog post on this talk, and right after I wrote the post, somebody said, "Hey, ThreatMiner just won up. Why didn't you mention that?" I was like, "Because I had no idea that it existed." So right after I set up my post, I looked at ThreatMiner, and it's very similar to OTX, except it's a smaller project. It doesn't really look like it's corporately funded, but they have a variety of indicators of compromise, so file hashes, IP addresses, domains, and unlike OTX, it's not browsable. So the idea is that you already have a threat or something that you want to look into that you found, and you're using this site to try and pivot off the data you have, like a file hash, an IP address, or a domain. I didn't really know where to put ThreatMiner because it kind of fits into both categories. You can use it to pivot off of data you currently have, but they also have a nice thing here called APT notes. I don't know if you guys can read this. Sorry if it's a bit small. But APT notes is a repository that's run by a group of researchers. Any advanced persistent threat reports that have come out recently, these researchers go through, they run it through the IOC parser, which is a script that'll go through, run through PDFs, run through websites, pull out the IP addresses, hashes, domains, whatever, and we'll put it into a nice little repository here that's much easier to search than a PDF. So this is a good central collection point if you want to go and collect the data from those reports instead of having to go to every vendor, go through the PDFs, and pull out the data on your own. This is another one that I've seen floating around, ran by a researcher calling himself Tracker. I don't know the guy's name. I don't know his handle, but he's pretty kick-ass at what he does. That's the URL right there, tracker.hex.eu. And he essentially has a bunch of data or a bunch of runs that he put through malware, a malware analysis sandbox. If you haven't heard of it, we'll be covering it in a little bit anyhow, so don't worry. But these are a bunch of runs that he put through a sandbox, and he just dumped them into these humongous tables. If you go to the About portion on this site, he does daily, weekly, and monthly CSV dumps of everything that's in his database. And he also has an email contact, so if there's a particular query that you want him to run or particular data that you want from him, he's more than willing to work with you. A+ person, great data, wonderful resources, highly recommended. And this is where I'm going to go into a rapid fire of a bunch of other websites that more or less I'm probably not going to have time to run, but I just kind of jammed them all into a single slide here. So WebIron has an abuse feed. I mentioned the WebIron bot's Twitter account being a honeypot account. The abuse feed is where it gets its data. You can export that to JSON and import that. If you're running Splunk or some other kind of SIEM, you can import that in there, and you can kind of cross-reference that data for yourself. BlueLib is very similar to OTX in that it's a place to exchange IOCs. Malware Hunter team has their own tracker where any pieces of malware that they've come across that they put up on their own tracker. Again, Malakel has his own database of pieces of malware on there. His site's in French, but if you click on any of the links there, the relevant data that you want, you can search by hash for anything in the malware repository. And the password for all this stuff is infected. That's standard procedure for most malware analysis guys, is that they make an encrypted zip file and the password's infected. And that's just about all you really need to know. I have one link at the very bottom here, Postmodern Security, and that's the one Thursday night I decided, before I came out here for the conference, there were 10 or 20 different links or resources there. And I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to leave this as an exercise to the user. And then I thought about it for a minute. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So middle of the day Thursday, I'm going through all these links. I'm bookmarking them. I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? Because you want to be a good researcher and you want to give these people good stuff. That's why. Okay. So that's what I was doing all of Thursday night, is going through that link. I was validating to make sure that the resources there were still alive, that, that the links weren't still dead, and organizing them into categories to make it easier to use. So that's more or less, that's where I got a lot more of the data for the bookmarks or the different resources out there. So I've gone through different places where I get my data, where if I don't have a threat to work with, or if I don't have data to start with, those are different researchers or different sites that I go to get a starting point, to have some pieces of data to start with. Once I have that data, what can I do with it? How can I pivot off of that? How can I refine that data? How can I find related threats? And what can I do to improve it? Because the more data points you have, the more complete the picture becomes, the more infrastructure you map out, the better off your organization is or your company is against a given threat. So I call these data refineries. Some people call them, some people call this data pivoting. There's all sorts of terms for it. I just call it refining the data, taking the data you have and kind of sharpening it, kind of trying to find more relevant information than what was originally given to you. And I'll give you a couple examples of that, since I'm a storyteller again. There was a OTX report for a piece of malware called the Quarlax rat, I think was the name of it. It was targeting non-U.S. people who were looking to get green cards or trying to enter the U.S. It was a phishing campaign. And there was information that got posted to OTX. So there were a bunch of IP addresses, there were file hashes. I was like, this is good data, but I'm wondering if there's more going on here. So I pull down the IP addresses and domains. I use one of my passive DNS databases to see if there are related domains that were hosted on that IP address. And lo and behold, I find one of the IP addresses has a bunch of dynamic DNS domains associated to it. And traditionally, whenever I see dynamic DNS, and it's probably never a good thing, probably. Dynamic DNS is normally used for, trying to host services at home or trying to host something that's hosted on a dynamic IP address out on the internet. The idea is that it has a short TTL, it's easy to host. If your IP address changes, the DNS address is able to be updated automatically as well. More often than not, in the best case scenario, it's being used for some kind of a user policy violation. And in the worst case scenario, they have been used as stage 1 or the first stage for a malware attack, for some sort of an advanced attack. I've seen indicators in the past where whatever APT, APT1, APT28, Dragonfly, Cyber, whatever, they started by using dynamic DNS domains because it's cheap infrastructure. So I found myself a rabbit hole and I kept chasing it down. I found 5 more IP addresses. I found 20 more dynamic DNS domains. And I was like, well, I can't necessarily prove that these are evil. I can't prove that they're evil, but there's a good chance that if one of the domains that's associated with the threat report was on this IP address, that whatever the hell else is here is probably no good either, and you don't want your users going to it. So I just put it in a category, guilty by association, or I wouldn't trust it, and said, your mileage may vary. Take a look at this, see if you see anything talking to it. So, one more thing I forgot. I'm going to list a bunch of different resources here that are in different categories. So free and freemium resources, these are resources that anybody can use. You either set up an account or you can freely browse the data, and you might have some kind of limitations where they say, well, you can access so much data, or you can make so many queries, or you can use the API so much, and then we're going to start charging you for it. And then there's commercial sources where they say, well, you have to sign up for this, or you need to give us money up front in order to be able to use it. A lot of people, when you do a conference talk, they say, well, why are you talking about commercial shit? This is a conference. You should always use open source solutions. I firmly believe in being able to present 2 different solutions to the same problem. That way, if you're working for a company and you have budget and you want to buy something and you want to go back to management and say, this is really cool shit, do we have budget for it? Let's go and see if we have budget for it. You can go back and you can tell your boss, we should get this because some thought leader at some conference said, go get it. And in other cases, you have access to, and I also present alternatives in case you're an independent researcher or you don't have money or you're on a shoestring budget and you're on your own. So I like to present alternatives when they're available. So to start out with, I really love OpenDNS. It's no secret that I used to work for Cisco. Cisco acquired OpenDNS a couple of years ago at this point. And they have one particular feature called Investigate, and it's their passive DNS offering. So essentially, anybody who uses the OpenDNS service feeds into this massive passive DNS database that they're running, and it allows you to answer questions like, I don't know why the screen keeps flickering like that. I'm going to try and see if plugging this in a little bit more will help that. See if there's anything loose here. Looks like everything's secure, so I'm sorry that it keeps flickering out on you guys. But it allows you to ask questions like, I want to know what other IP addresses that this domain has been seen on. Maybe it's fast flux, maybe it's dynamic DNS, maybe there's more infrastructure here than we know about. I want you to show me other domains that are on this given IP address that might be related to a given threat. I see this a lot with exploit kits. If you see one .top domain, chances are there's 20 other .top GTLD domains that are being utilized on the same IP address that are probably just as stupid or bad, or might be an indicator of a domain generation algorithm that's being used by a piece of malware. Show me where this email address that was used for registration was used to register other domains. They do reputation scoring and let you say, well, we think that this is bad, or this is added to our blacklist. And the latest feature that they added, which I think is absolutely awesome, is they run their own malware repository. And if you put in an IP address or a domain, it'll say, we saw this SHA-256 calling back to this IP address or this domain. So you can then pivot off of that data, look it up in VirusTotal, look it up in malware, look it up in ThreatMiner, all these other great tools, and try and see if there's anything that might be related to it, or that it might be a particular threat that you're looking for and you just have a limited data set and you just hit a gold mine because they said this hash called back to this IP address. Okay, let's look and see if we can find that file in our network. So, moving on. I'm going to give you an example scenario where I was able to use this and I was able to refine the data, enrich it a little bit using OpenDNS. This was a link to a malware traffic analysis blog post. This guy does tremendously good blog posts. He'll say, I saw this exploit kit, it dropped this piece of malware, here is a zip file with the malware, here's a zip file with the PCAPs, here's a zip file with everything that I found, here's the IP addresses and domains that I saw that were talking the entire time when I let this run. So that's what I did here, is I went to this blog post and I pulled out this IP address right here for the exploit kit or the malvertising, this domain that was associated to the IP address, and then this IP address here that was used by the malware as a post-infection callback. So this is where the malware was talking. So some questions we want to ask as well. What else was hosted at the initial IP address? And do we have any other domains that are associated with these guys, or do we have any evidence that this has a negative reputation on OpenDNS or maybe some other reputation services out there? So I pulled a couple of pictures here, and I don't know if these pictures are going to show up all right. I'm going to do my best to describe them, and I'm sorry if they're poor quality. But all of the domains that I found at the 188 address, they have a low number of queries. Normally when you see exploit kit activity or malvertising activity, you'll see here's a group of domains that look like they're gibberish or look like they just got set up a couple of days ago. And you'll get this kind of a graph that's associated with them here where they show absolutely no activity, no queries for almost an entire month. And then the day that somebody notices something happened, you'll see a small spike here. And on this scale over here, there's 2, 5, and 7 queries. So for almost an entire month, you see no activity for this domain on this IP address. And then when it's discovered being a threat, hosting an exploit kit, hosting malware, or whatever, you see this massive spike, and then it just dies again. And when I searched for the IP address, I found all of these strange-looking domains that look like they might be some sort of a domain generation algorithm that share the same root on the fully qualified domain here. So I just said, well, this probably isn't good, and I'm willing to bet that if one of the domains here is bad, then the rest of them aren't any good either. I'd probably wager that that's a good guess. So I was satisfied with what I found on the first address. I look up the second IP address. So we don't find any other domains that are associated here, but we see right off the gate, oh look, it's already blacklisted. It's already blacklisted by OpenDNS, so we know for certain that it's bad news bears. And in addition to that, look at this. We have a whole bunch of SHA-256 hashes. And now we know for some certainty that the second IP address is up to no good. It should be blacklisted. It's bad juju. So the conclusion that we come across is, screw you. There's the IP address. Here's all the domains associated with this IP address that should be considered guilty by association. Here's the one that we actually observed malware going back to. And then down here, when the infection happens and its payload is dropped, we don't have any domains that are associated with it, but we know it's bad now, and we also have file hashes associated with it, so we can pivot off of that and try and look those hashes up in malware analysis databases or VirusTotal or whatever. So the part that you're interested in and makes this not look like a stupid sales pitch for OpenDNS are the free alternatives. So the first one right up here, passivedns.mnemonic.no, it's a 100% free passive DNS database. It isn't as good a data set as OpenDNS, but it allows you to answer the question, have you guys seen anything hosted at this IP address? You can present the query and they'll say, well, I've seen it or I haven't seen it. You aren't going to get the nice reputation services. You're not going to get the nice, oh, well, here's how many queries I saw for it. But at the very least, it'll give you some idea. I've seen these other domains hosted at this IP address. BFK.de, their DNS logger interface, they don't have any kind of an API or allow for bulk requests, but it's very much the same thing. It's another passive DNS database. You can query it, put in an IP address, and see if there's other associated domains that they might have found in their passive DNS database. Passive Total is another service. It's very similar to ThreatMinder that I mentioned earlier. It's a freemium solution, so you can get a free account, make a certain number of queries. If you want more queries or if you want more access, you pay for it. But it's like getting addicted to crack. The first hits are free. So there's obviously good old VirusTotal. They have their own passive DNS database for malware hits that they check and any kind of malware analysis that they do. You can search for IP addresses and domains there, and it'll tell you whether or not they think it's any good. There's Farsight. I don't have too much experience with Farsight because I tried asking, how much are you guys? And they said, LOL, we're expensive as balls. If you have to ask, you don't got the money. And then I said, the other question was like, well, we do allow for some academic research. And I said, I'm a threat researcher and I'd love to have access to this data. And they're like, LOL, you're not associated with the university. Get out of here. Domain Tools is another commercial solution. It's been around forever. That's more associated with who-has lookups or reverse who-has lookups. So that's if you want to do the whole, this email address was used to register this domain, and we want to hunt down and see whether other domains that this guy has registered in the past. And the last one here is one of the more interesting one. CircleLu, Luxembourg Cert. They do a kick-ass job with malware analysis. I'm genuinely impressed with the work that they do. They have their own MISP database. They have their own passive DNS database. They have a sandboxing engine. And generally speaking, they require approval. The data is free, but you have to get approved to get access to it. And more often than not, it's just a simple answer or sending an email to info@CircleLu and exchanging PGP keys. And if you got a good enough reputation, they'll let you in, they'll give you access to their data. So they're good people, they run a good program, the data's free. The worst that could happen is you ask for the request and they treat you like Farsight and they say, LOL, no. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about file analysis and file hashes. So right off the gate, VirusTotal is king. Everybody knows that. VirusTotal Intelligence is a relatively new service that they offer. If you have access to it, if you have the power to ask your boss what services you want to help make your analysis job, your blue teaming work, your security operations work easier, ask them for it. Get pricing. It's good stuff. It is like crack if you do malware analysis. What makes it so nice is there's a nice little graphical interface that they give you for looking up hashes and stuff. Being able to do clustering with some of the data sets that they have. They have a nice feature called similar to, where you can say, I want to find all files that look like this hash. I want to, and it doesn't use SSD, but it doesn't use imp hash or PE hash or any of those hashing formats for finding similar files. They have some crazy-ass machine learning thing going on in the background. It's Google. I'm half convinced that they're freaking Reapers to begin with, but they've got some crazy shit going on there, and the data is amazing. The other thing you can do, and I've done this in the past, is you can set up YARA rules to run on anything that gets submitted to VirusTotal. So what I like to do is I got a bunch of YARA rules for detecting common rats, remote access tools. If it looks like this kind of rat, I want you to pull the file and I want you to put it into a list. Then I download all of those rats And this GitHub entry here is run by a colleague of mine that I know through Twitter, Brian Wallace, who works at Cylance. He wrote a tool called Bamf Detect that's used to tear out the configuration information for the RAT. So you can just grind it through a bunch of these executables that you got. You can get a list of IP addresses and domains that they're calling back to, ports that they're calling back to. And I say, well, that looks like a good start to me, and then start pivoting off of that, you know. Take those IP addresses and domains and throw them into passive DNS databases and see what you get, and just keep on going from there. That's one of the things that I really like to do with it. The other thing that I recently did that was a lot of fun was the IronGate threat that FireEye put out recently. The thing that they say is like Stuxnet, but not really. Just for funsies, I decided to go through and I got a list of all the file hashes that were associated with the report. And I didn't find anything related to it. I didn't find similar to data, but I found out who initially submitted the files. Like I didn't get usernames, but I got locations. I got geolocations and I got user IDs from where they came from. And it turned out that the files were almost all of them were initially uploaded in mid-2014, September-November timeframe. It was September-October timeframe. And they all came from the same user ID from Israel. So, a little food for thought. I just thought that that was a little bit interesting. And so that's my sales pitch for Virus Total Intelligence. Lots of fun stuff you can do with it. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing I forgot to mention here is Virus Total will analyze PCAPs, and you don't need to have a Virus Total Intelligence account for that. If you give it a PCAP that you think is malicious, it will run it against both Snort IDS and Suricata with the Talos and ET rule set and say, I saw these Snort rules fire. This is what I think is going on with it. But also as a warning, you submit those PCAP files and now I get a copy of them because Virus Total holds on to everything that they upload, just in case you didn't know. Also, just in case you didn't know, Virus Total, if you have the threat intelligence or the intelligence interface and something was submitted through Tor, they are smart enough to tell you, I saw this coming through a Tor connection. So that's something else to think about. They know where you're coming from, they log your IP addresses, they know whether or not you're coming from Tor, and they keep the file that you uploaded. So, food for thought if you have a tinfoil hat thing going on. If you don't have VT Intel access, everybody in this room or anybody who does any kind of SOC work knows that Virus Total Free is pretty damn good at what it does. Upload the files. Now you know the risks associated with them, that VT keeps the files that you upload. If you don't want to upload them, you can search for the file hash and see if VT has already seen it, search for the IP address, search for the domain, so on and so forth. Nothing new there. But I'm going to move on to an example here where I got a Virus Total link, and it was a tweet that said, this is Locky. This is its affiliate ID. Locky's dead now, so this isn't really relevant, but this is an example of how I used Virus Total and did a little bit of pivoting based on some of the stuff I found in Virus Total. So here's the file hash. Here's a link to Virus Total. I know that this is Locky. I know its affiliate ID. Where did the file come from? What does it call back to? What's its command and control? And are there any similar files out there? So we look at this file, and unlike YouTube comments, you want to look at the Virus Total comments. If you see comments in Virus Total, they're a gold mine. As you can see right here, we have a list of IP addresses that were used for command and control. We have the URI at the end here, so it's userinfo.php. Could potentially be used for an IDS signature if you want to risk writing that signature. And then we have a list of URLs down here where the stage 1 or the macro that was dropped to the host or through a phishing campaign or something, where the stage 1 macro tried to download this executable and pick it up from. So we have more data to pivot off of. We can throw this back into passive DNS, and we can try and figure out what the infrastructure looks like, or see if there's any domains that are associated with this IP address. So making that bigger picture. So the end result here is we recovered what stage 2 sites or what sites the executable was downloaded from. We know where it came from. We know where it's calling back to, the command and control is calling back to. And we can feed all of that into our passive DNS tools to get even more data out of it. We couldn't find anything on related files. I didn't use VirusTotal Threat Intelligence for this demo because I wanted to be fair to you guys. I used OpenDNS and I said, look at all this cool stuff it can do. You don't have the money to do this, but this is all this cool stuff it can do. So I wanted to say, here's what you can do with VirusTotal free. If you find comments there, I got lucky. I got a bunch of sites where the executable could be downloaded, and I got a list of command and control domains that I could further pivot off of. So your alternatives to VirusTotal, high root analysis is really nice. It's a freemium resource. You can sign up for a free account. You can submit your files there. By default, if you submit something to hybrid analysis, it also posts it to VirusTotal. So if you have a VirusTotal intelligence account, or if you have a private API, and it said, I posted this to VT, and I saw that this is what the score was there, you can go and look for the hash in VT and download it there, and get around any kind of, if the user decided to set it as a private analysis, which is an option if you're a premium user. There's an option to say, I don't want to have the executable available for download. But if they're stupid enough to say, let me cross-post this to VirusTotal and see what I get, you get access to the file, which I might or might not have used in the past. Malware is a sandbox based on Cuckoo. It's the second biggest thing next to VirusTotal. It's free. It's an available resource. All you got to do is sign up. There is an unofficial API in GitHub. I forgot the researcher who wrote it. If you want to shout it out or you know, feel free. But it's a free resource. It's a free malware analysis sandbox, and it's generally pretty awesome. There's Komodo's sandbox. I've heard from other researchers that it's good for taking a quick look at malware and getting a quick idea of what it looks like, what it's doing. And then, of course, there's always the option of rolling your own. This blog post right here, Digitalized Warfare, another buddy of mine, he wrote this post. It's a post on getting Cuckoo 2.0 set up from soup to nuts, from the bottom to the top, because Cuckoo is kind of like Cthulhu. Its many arms are freaking everywhere. You can have it pull volatility images. You can have it run TCP dump. You can have it run snort, and you can have it run suricata. You can have it analyze SSL. But in order to do all of that, it can also do a Yarrow rule analysis. If you want it to do all of that, you have to configure it properly. And you have to tell Cuckoo where to find all of this data. So this good and awesome friend of mine did all of that shit for you. And 2.0 is the current version. So if you want to roll your own, you want to run your own sandbox in your own enterprise, great starting point. And then at the very bottom here, we have Lenny Zeltser. This guy is my idol. He's my senpai. So he's who I look up to. He does the SANS GREM course. So anything on his site is pure gold. He has a list here of automated malware analysis sandboxing engines as well. I went through the trouble of making sure that those were alive and adding them to the bookmarks that I set up as well and categorizing them. So awesome sauce, great researcher, does tremendous blog posts, and is a boon to the community. PaulSec? Forgotten up here said it was PaulSec who did the unofficial API for malware, just in case you guys wanted to know and look it up on GitHub. And this is the last section, passive information gathering. We normally attribute this kind of stuff to social engineering engagements or red team engagements where the red team wants to be able to find out as much information about an organization that they're targeting as they can before they go in for the attack. So I really didn't think of using passive information gathering for an incident response case until a friend of mine, Packet Knife, kind of suggested that this might be something you want to look at. The red team isn't the only.
Hi folks, I'm Geek here, and unfortunately we have another freeze on the Avid Media, so the video should continue with audio at about the 50-minute, 42-second mark. Sorry for the inconvenience.
media and you say, hey, this looks like it might be easy to scan. This looks like it might be a service that's pretty easy to look for. He's pretty forgiving, and he'll say, yeah, okay, maybe we can look and see if we can add that to our index. A good example is a researcher found a vulnerability recently where if I want to say port 3310 is open, there's a way to query whether or not ClamAV is running on the box. And you can also, if ClamAV is running on the box, you can possibly query it, and you can have it you can ask it in such a way to say, does this file exist on the box, through sending it a scan command. Scan this file, and if the command returns successful, you know that that file is located on the file system. And if you left that publicly accessible, the port is port 3310, then at the very least, you know this file exists in this particular location. And that might help you take advantage of another vulnerability on the system, like a directory traversal or something along those lines. So passive information gathering, it's a thing. It can lead to getting more information on an investigation, because oftentimes these low criticality vulnerabilities get chained together and get turned into something nasty that eventually ends up being a shell and ends up with your company getting owned. So, okay, what else here? I got another rapid fire list here. IPintel.io is really nice. If you have a list of IP addresses that are delimited in comma, pipe, whatever format, space delimited, new line separated, up to 100 of them, and you just want to figure out where they are in the world, dump them in here, and they'll do the geolocation lookup for you and put them on a nice Google map and say, we found this IP address to be located here. Netcraft.com is an old standby. HurricaneElectric.net has a lot of AS maps and route maps, and lets you know who owns what routes, who owns what networks, and allows you to kind of get an idea of how different IP addresses, routes, and AS numbers are related to one another. Kaimu and Shadow Server have their own Whois services. If you've used Whois on the command line, you know that every registry all over the damn internet has a different way of formatting the data that they return. These guys, you send them a Whois request, they say, here's the IP address you asked for, here's the AS number, here's the organization that owns that AS, here is the /24, the /22, or the route that's associated with that, in a nice pipe delimited format. So really easy to get that data from those guys and feed it into a database or something. And I already mentioned what punkspider.org does. And last but not least is census.io. It's a U of M project related to the ZMAP project. These guys are comparable to Shodan. They're not quite as good. There isn't as much data indexed, but the data is available 100% for free. You can download entire data sets, and they really don't care. So it's a nice alternative if you need free data or if you want free passive data. And that's about all I got here. Any questions? Anything to add?
Pay for Shodan.
Pay for Shodan.
Probably spent more on your barbell than Shodan. Wait for Black Friday sale.
How much time do I have left?
Zero.
0.
Minus 59 after.
59 after what?